We're sure you know where you're experiencing pain and discomfort, but we don't think you really know why. You will early in the following video, and before the end you'll know simple ways to prevent most, if not all of it, and it won't cost you or your company a dime.
Hello, my name is Stephen Price. For most of the past 4 decades, my team and I have been providing computer users with a much appreciated service that most had not actually known they needed. Usually in the office environment, we taught them how to properly adjust and use their chair, workstation, and computer to alleviate the discomfort they absolutely had been experiencing. And they didn't know they needed help? What is even more surprising is that most had actually caused their discomfort, which was often serious, yet before we met would rarely make any adjustments to improve their well-being, or at least not the right ones. Confusing? Well, it won't be. We know the reason, have for many years, including how and why incorrect ergonomic advice became a rather big part of the problem. Early on, our Montreal-based consultant, alleviating, created a discomfort assessment questionnaire that proved to be extremely important because of one very unique question. All other questions are about specific discomfort, and as I list them, I want you to ask yourself if any are experienced by you. Discomfort or pain in the lower back, middle back, shoulders, neck, elbows, wrists, ankles or knees. Headache, eye strain, eye fatigue, nausea or frequent but temporary myopia, as well as swelling or numbness in the ankles and feet. The questionnaire allows each individual to identify and grade the severity of their discomfort if it exists. While I can't know what your response would be, discomfort is very common, and almost everyone would identify at least one serious pain, and often it is 2 or 3. Yet they rarely said or did anything about it. That one question and the answers to it explains everything. The question is, to what do you attribute your discomfort? As hard as it is to believe, and it is ironic, almost everyone just accepts or actually blames most, if not all, of their discomfort and pain on a weakness within themselves. They'll say, I have a bad back, I have weak eyes, I have bad knees, I suffer from headaches, or I have tendinitis, as though it is a cause and not a symptom. I suffer from neck pain, as though it's their fault. I hurt my back playing football in college. I was in a car accident. I fell off my snowmobile, and on and on and on. Even if there was a previous injury or condition, little consideration is given to whether how they sit and work day after day is contributing to their pain. We also get, I think my pillow or my mattress is too soft, making those individuals part of the group that hurts more after work or the next morning and are therefore most unlikely to attribute their pain to how they sit and work. People who just accept their discomfort will often give us replies like, I use a computer, as though that alone explains every ache they experience. Would that be you? Would you attribute your discomfort to your using a computer? If so, let's make one thing very clear. Computers do not cause discomfort. You do. How you sit, how you key, how you mouse, how you use your monitor, your laptop, your phone, or any other piece of equipment or document in the completion of your work. That is the why. As we'll show you, any excessive physical demand caused by how you complete any of those functions will cause discomfort and pain over time. Most of you already have the chair and workstation you need to work without discomfort, if only you use them properly. Hopefully, by the end of this video, you will. By the way, if you frequently react to an urge to get away from that damn computer, you are still reacting to discomfort. It just means that it's hurting your productivity a lot more than it's hurting you. More on productivity later. But for those of you who often react that way, try not leaving your workstation the next time you get the urge, until you can identify a specific reason. We know it will be something, your back hurting, your shoulders or your eyes, but something that can be alleviated. Acceptance of discomfort has been so pervasive, even when we followed major installations at sites from the East Coast to the West, of workstations that were fully adjustable by the user, not once had anyone ever properly adjusted their workstation to meet their physical and functional needs before we arrived. Decade after decade, it never happened. Most never even tried. Changing that with the right ergonomic suggestions was our job. Although the questionnaire is only used occasionally, knowing how people relate to their discomfort greatly influenced our training and education program, including the opening seminar on which most of this video is based, and the optional one-on-one sessions that followed. The seminar opens everyone's eyes to how they are causing their discomfort, to the extent that virtually everyone has wanted that one-on-one session, and our advice on how they could alleviate the discomfort and pain that they absolutely had been experiencing. So why this video? Unfortunately, we think it is no longer practical for us or any other ergonomic consultant to help anyone in person, because there's just too much change happening, too many shared workstations, both in the office and at home. Too much of a chance that someone will alter the adjustments we help you make, and you will not know how to get them back again, which has probably happened to a lot of the people that we have already helped over the years. Also, many of you are working remotely in coffee shops or sitting on benches, sofas, or your bed, working in postures that will absolutely cause you pain and discomfort over time, and probably already have. Which is why we think there is only one solution left, and that is the purpose of this video. We are going to teach everyone how to be their own ergonomic consultant, to know what you need to think about before you start working anywhere. Very simple rules about how you should be sitting and working to make sure you don't cause yourself pain and discomfort, or that urge to get away from the damn computer. For every discomfort listed on our questionnaire, we are going to give you both the cause and the solution. And we're going to leave that information available to you here for whenever you need a reminder. While this video will be split into sections addressing specific discomforts, it is at the end of this video that everything is brought together to maximize your working comfort and, as a natural byproduct, your productivity. Now, in spite of what I've said about you usually causing your discomfort, we're going to start with one that is actually not your fault. It is caused by bad ergonomic advice. Look, we've known for many years that you can give 10 employees the same task, and they could need 10 different solutions to meet their specific needs. Unfortunately, as the demand for ergonomics and consultants grew, so did their desire for standard recommendations that could be applied to everyone. Except the differences in our physical and functional needs are so great, standard ergonomic recommendations have been a major cause of employee discomfort and pain for years. So, what is the worst ergonomic advice being given? That's easy. Most of you have been told or led to believe that a computer monitor should be elevated because it is not natural looking down. That is completely false, and the proof has always been right in front of everyone. If it were natural for us to have, this was what was natural, and we would all have evolved with a muscular and skeletal ability to do this. This is how we would use our hands, and we would have evolved that way, but we have not. We have evolved using our hands here. We evolved working with our hands like this. Billions of people in the world don't use computers. They work with their hands. And they work with their hands here. Not here, here. And they look at their hands. And they look at their hands not doing this. No one ever does that. What they do is have a slight forward tilt of the head and a downward gaze with the eyes. And they can work with their hands all day long because we have evolved with that muscular and skeletal ability. This is what we have not evolved doing. We look down at our hands while we work. How natural that is. Do you know that it's only a short period of human evolution that some of us can actually walk like this, looking straight ahead? Try walking like that on uneven ground. Try walking like that through a park. Fine, if you have floors and roads and sidewalks, different story. But we have evolved walking on uneven surfaces. And you know what? If you walk looking like this, you're going to fall. In fact, we have evolved looking down. We look down at our, actually the funny thing is we look down at an angle that is about the same angle as if we were looking at our feet, at our hands I should say, as if we were looking at our hands. So we look at that angle, that's how we look down to walk so we don't fall, so you don't trip. That is how we've evolved. So what that means is that is a closed surface. That is, you can't think about, oh, well, you know, if I just move my monitor back a little bit, that is closed. That is what we look down for. By the way, Dr. Springer, one of the things that he said to me is we have also been looking down through our evolution for safety reasons. His example is that a stick or a snake? We look down. That's what we do. By the way, if you want to have experience something interesting, the next time you're walking, or whenever you're walking on flat surfaces, next time you're walking down a sidewalk, walking in an office, walking anywhere, I want you to look at how many people come walking down either towards you, or you can watch them walking along the sidewalk, and you know what you'll see? So often you'll see them looking down. They'll look down. What are you seeing when people are looking down when they walk on flat surfaces? You are seeing evolutionary instinct being demonstrated. We have spent so much of our evolution looking down because we walk on uneven surfaces, looking down for safety, that we still look down even when we look on flat surfaces. So don't tell me that it's not natural looking down when it is how we have evolved. Either working with our hands like this, looking at them, or looking down for safety as we walk on uneven surfaces. That is how we've evolved. What makes far, far more sense? Obviously, it is a lower monitor. It is a monitor that sits down here. This is what we need. This is how we work. We look down, and we should have this monitor as close to the keyboard as possible. Do you know what? We have never, as consultants, recommended an elevated monitor. And you know what else? We've never used human evolution as our reason. We have always had enough practical, functional reasons about how people work, how people use their computer, to make those the reasons this monitor should be lowered and never elevated. What do they include? Well, we know that most people look at their keyboard. They could look at their keyboard a lot, certainly a lot more than they think they do. Sure, we've had people say to us, oh, I'm a touch typist. I don't look at my keyboard. But what do? We do eye motion studies. We actually track where do their eyes go. And it is amazing how many times people actually look down at their keyboard and back up to their monitor. And the greater the separation, the more eye strain, obviously, that you're going to experience. Now, having an elevated monitor, period, defies human evolution because that's where we see a distance. That's where we look far, and all of a sudden we're saying, oh, no. You now have to view close. And a lot of the eye strain, eye fatigue, and nausea, and frequent but temporary myopia all comes because you're defying human evolution by saying, no, you gotta look here now. But this is far more natural. Actually, the best setup between a keyboard and a monitor is on a laptop. That's the closest. But there's a lot of problems with keying on a laptop, which we'll get to later when we talk about wrist pains. So, getting back to this, why do a lot of people look at their keyboard? Well, it's very, very simple. A lot of people have a mixture of letters and numbers. And the keyboard, the QWERTY keyboard, very nicely set up, ASDF, JKL, semicolon. From there you can access every letter on the keyboard. But the numbers are next row away, or the pad over here. And people will look down at their keyboard when they have a mix of letters and numbers. As I said, we record that. What are other cases? Well, you know what? There's a lot of people who aren't and never will be touch typists. They will always be looking down at the keyboard. Some, it'll be just the CVB and maybe QW that they'll be looking at, but often enough, that is, again, frequent up and down eye movement. We also have cases where we know that people can get to their mouse with their peripheral vision, but they can't get back to home row keying position without looking at their keyboard. So over and over again, we constantly find that people are looking down at their keyboard. We also know that a lot of people work from documents that have to sit on the desk surface. They might be in binders, they might be, who knows what they're contained in. But if they have to go on the desk surface, they can't go on a document holder. So now we've got people looking down here at a document, people looking down there at the keyboard. Where do you think the monitor should be? Up here, creating all that distance of head and eye movement, or down here? One of the things I find very interesting is a lot of people have been caught up in, okay, yes, they find that, yeah, that monitor too close, they notice eye strain. What solution do they come up with? Larger monitors. So all of a sudden they have larger monitors, they're pushing further away. The problem with that is it creates a different focal depth. So you have a focal depth here, and then a completely different one when you look at your monitor. The one that really kills me is when there's not enough depth that way, so they actually move their monitor, larger monitor, towards the end, one end to the desk or the other. Then what you end up with is neck pain. So now you've got eye strain, headaches, neck pain, all being caused because we were told wrongly the monitor should be elevated. No. What you want is try to create a setup where you have the same amount of viewing distance to each thing. You know what? This whole thing about elevated monitors, it's really created a bit of a nightmare. Go into stores, go into where they have checkout counters now, banks, go into the banks, go up to the tellers. It's just defies all logic because everything they do is down here. Everything, whether they're standing, whether they're sitting, whatever, they have all, whether it's on the conveyor belt, passing SKUs, checking, and then they make them go like this. They have to keep going like this up to the monitor because it's elevated. It's crazy. And you want to know who it's craziest for? Hardest? People who wear bifocals. And there's growing in numbers of people wearing bifocals. And what do they end up having to do? This. They're doing like this when the monitor is elevated. They end up tilting their head back. And when I watch them in banks and checkout counters, and it's what they have to go through, it's crazy. If stores and banks are wondering why they're having a harder time finding people to man those positions, well, why make it so impossible for people who wear bifocals? In fact, I gotta tell a simple little story. I remember working in a telecom company once, and I was actually working in one department, but I kept walking by this woman who was wearing bifocals, and monitor was up here, it was on top of the CPU in those days, and she's doing this constantly, just tilting her head back like this. And I went over to her and I said, "Might be bothering me, tell me something. Do you ever experience any physical discomfort during the working day?" And she goes, "Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yeah. My neck hurts so bad." She says, "The pain is terrible." And then she goes, no. The pain is horrible." As though the word terrible wasn't good enough, and it's horrible. And I said to her, "To what do you attribute your discomfort?" And you know what she said? "It's because I'm getting old." Yeah, I've heard that a lot. It's because I'm getting old. How sad is that? And of course, I did explain to her that she may be getting old, but that wasn't what was causing the pain in her neck. It was the elevated monitor, and I very quickly moved the CPU, brought the monitor down, and she could see immediately the difference in her comfort and well-being. So let's go over this again. So why would people want functional reasons? What are the reasons that people would want to have a lower monitor? Well, if they're not touch typists, never will be. They already know they're looking down at the keyboard, between the keyboard and the monitor a lot. If there's a lot of numbers and letters mixed in the data that you're processing, you know you're going to be looking down at the keyboard a lot. And by the way, let me stop for a sec. We're going to teach each of you. We're trying to say we'll teach you how to be your own ergonomic consultants. If you're not sure what you're doing, if you're like the people who think they're touch typists and think they don't, find out. Take the time to set up your phone somewhere, set on the camera, and film yourself working. Take a look. How many times are you looking at your keyboard to monitor or document? How often do you have eye movement? And then you'll know. It won't be a guess. You'll know. In fact, it'll help make a better ergonomic consultant just doing that than a lot of ergonomic consultants. But anyways, getting back to that. Lower your monitor if you know you're looking down at your keyboard. Know you look to your keyboard because you mouse a lot. Know you have documents that have to go on the desk surface for whatever reason. And know you're looking down there. Bring those down. Okay. So now it's time to talk about the chair. I have to tell you that it doesn't matter whether it's an old chair or a new chair. People keep making the same mistake. Most people adjust their chair so they can sit comfortably, which is totally wrong. You're not supposed to adjust your chair so you can sit comfortably. You're supposed to adjust your chair so you can work comfortably. And it's not the same thing. But before I demonstrate what you do and the mistake you make in terms of the adjustment, I can tell you a mistake that you have in terms of manufacturers, which was done from ergonomic recommendations that make no sense at all. And that is these armrests. Armrests cause more discomfort than benefit by far. They get in the way when people are multitasking. They want to turn from one surface to the other. They can't. We see people sitting perched on their desk. They don't even know they're on the front edge of their chair. They don't even realize they're doing it as they move from one surface or whatever, for whatever reason, was in their workstation. A lot of times people are so petite, I don't care if the armrests are adjustable or not, they end up getting in the way. They can't even get up to their desk surface. They don't work, they don't help, and they're completely unnecessary. We already talked about our physical anatomy that allows us to work for long periods of time without any discomfort by working like this. Get rid of the armrest. The armrest, not necessary. Now, the next point is, most people adjust so they can sit comfortably, like I said. And how do they do that? They adjust it so they can, oh wow, is this ever comfortable? By the way, I've seen a lot of chairs that only adjust to this point. But then what do? People end up doing like this. They work like this all day long. It's funny because we'll say to them, how do you like your chair? They go, oh, it's wonderful, thank you very much. And then they're back up here again. We call them the incredible shrinking people because the day wears on, their back gets tired, and down they go. At the end of the day, they're working like this, and they're wondering why their back is so sore. But it's not just their back that gets sore. What happens, we see people do a lot of pain transfer, especially while they're still fresh. So in other words, they'll work like this until their back's sore, and then they'll do this and raise their arms up from here, and work like this until their shoulders are sore, and then work like this until their back is sore, and then work like this until their shoulders are sore, and it's just back and forth. Totally can be eliminated by one simple adjustment. Adjust the chair back so you're sitting upright. In fact, that's a simple rule. Want to know how to adjust your chair? Sit up straight and adjust the chair back to support that. Now I like to have it just slightly back from that, and so you're a little bit leaning into it. But now you have a good upright posture. By the way, if you just sit in a chair like this, it feels like you're going to be pushed out of the chair. But the moment you bring your hands up in front of you into a home roll, into a keying position, it makes so much sense because now you have total working comfort and no problem in lower back. Now, problem with that is you need a good chair. Most of you have the right chair, but a lot of chairs, unfortunately, are called ergonomic and they're not. And those are chairs that were designed based on anthropometric data from the 60s. As Dr. Tim Springer has explained to me, that was the only data available about human anatomy. Problem is, it was on men, mostly men, fit men. And you know what? They have one very big distinct difference between men and female anatomy, and that is size of their bums. Women have bigger bums, and the heavier women get, the bigger their bums get. And what does that do? Well, that raises them up. It raises the height of their lower lumbar. And you know what? A lot of chairs don't accommodate it. Those of you who have the right chairs, make sure you take the time. This actually is an excellent chair. This chair is an excellent for a few reasons. One of which, the shape of the back actually resembles a human back. I see so many chairs, I don't even know where they get the design from because it certainly doesn't follow a human's back. Be careful because there's some chairs that actually look like this, but there's nothing here. You actually can push in the fabric and it goes in, which means there's actually no support. There'll be a bump here and then nothing here. Your back's going to hurt in that. This chair provides a perfect support for me. Now, but I said, how about women? Women who have bigger and bigger bums, what do they need? They need something like this. A chair that can raise up the back support to support them. Now that might look excessive, but believe me, I've seen people that this is still not high enough. This chair, you can also adjust the seat pan and bring it out. It is dipped up, adjustable. It can come out to accommodate bigger people. And yes, it's very common. You know what? I have so many times gone into offices and seen people either have not adjusted their chair properly, women who are heavy, and I go to them and I say, tell me, do you ever experience any physical discomfort during your working day? And they'll say, oh, my back hurts so bad, it's so sore. To what do you attribute your discomfort? And you know what they'll say?
it's because I'm overweight. You know what? Say if you fall into that category, I'll say the same thing to you that I say to them. You may be overweight, but you have every right to work without discomfort as anybody who's thinner than you. You have that right to work without discomfort. And it's as simple as having a chair that will accommodate you, accommodate where your lower lumbar is. So this is a very, very key point. Having a chair that will provide for that. Of course, for me, I need it somewhat lower than this, but it is a big problem. Okay, so now let's talk about wrist pain. Wrist pain is one of those things that never should exist. No one should have wrist pain. No one should have ever had carpal tunnel surgery. No one. There's absolutely no reason for it if they had keyed properly. If you don't, then you're a prime candidate for wrist pain and eventual surgery. So let me explain to you this way. A lot of people don't realize that when I move my fingers, what I want you to do, I don't know if you can see or not, but where do you see movement? You see movement here. This is where our fingers are controlled, is in our forearm. We don't have strong fingers that allow us to lift weights, climb, use a lot of force. That strength all comes from here, not from here. And what happens is all these ligaments pass down through into this muscle, and as I said, as I move them, I don't know if you can see the muscle move there as I move my fingers. But as those ligaments, we move our fingers, those ligaments move through what's called the carpal tunnel. And those ligaments move this way. That's how they move as we move our fingers. And to do this, it's a muscle change. Now, what happens is all of those ligaments are inside what's called a synovial sheath. So it passes through the carpal tunnel. They're all encased in synovial sheath, and they all have a lubricant. The lubricant's called the synovial fluid. And it's a very good lubricant, and as long as we move our fingers, we can do that all day long. It doesn't matter what you do. If you move your fingers all day long, you will never have a problem. But the moment you tilt your wrist out from a straight, anywhere from a straight handed line to the wrist position, the moment you do that, what happens is you compress the carpal tunnel, and it squeezes out the synovial fluid inside the sheath. And now all of a sudden, you have your ligaments rubbing on the sheathing without the benefit of lubricant. And you know what? Do it for a while, might cause some tinglings, a little bit of pain. Do it more and more, and you'll eventually have serious, serious pain problems. All preventable if only you had put your hand in a straight hand in line to the wrist position while you were keying. There are different ways to help you maintain that straight hand in line to the wrist position. What I like having a wrist rest. You know, when you buy new ones, I just rolled up a roll of bubble wrap. If I'm at home, I'll actually just take a kitchen towel and roll it up when I sit at the dining room table, and then it helps me maintain a straight hand in line to the wrist position. And you won't ever have any problems. We do have to talk about laptops. As I said, laptops, as far as the eyes go, marvelous. You've got such a great relationship with the keyboard to monitor, and if you have a lot of keyboard to screen eye movement, it's not an issue. The mouse is down here. It's really, really a great idea. They even have a built-in wrist support, so you don't need to add something. But when they're flat, they're not easy to key. They're not easy to key on. You have a lot, I'm exaggerating, you have a lot of reach like this. I always tilt it. I always put something underneath my laptop to tilt it up and facilitate easier movement, easier keying position. Okay, so let's talk about shoulder pain. I took away the monitor for this demonstration so you can see what it is that I really want to show you. Now, I want to just show you this. So right now, if I'm sitting at a keyboard in this position, I will never have shoulder pain. It will never develop. My shoulders are completely relaxed. I'm in a comfortable, good straight hand line to the wrist position, good upright support, and I can key and key for all day, and I will never have a shoulder problem. If, however, the keyboard were as little as 1 inch higher, or my chair 1 inch lower, that would create all kinds of problems. Now, what happens? So here I am, relaxed, key no problem. 1 inch difference,
I would use my muscles across the top of my shoulders to raise my arms. I don't know if you can see. Can you see the difference? Here is relaxed. Here I'm using the muscles to raise my arms across the top of my shoulder. I mean, I see some people, it looks like they have no neck at all as they struggle with keyboards that are too high for them, but then that's an obvious problem. But this, and really the reason I'm showing you this, because I had said earlier that the slightest error in how you accommodate any of your functions can in fact cause discomfort and pain over time. Well, this is one of those examples. So 1 inch difference, having a 1 inch goes from relaxed to using those muscles, relaxed to raising the arms up like this. And believe me, after the first month, you'll notice the tingling. They call it accumulative trauma for a reason. You notice the tingling up between the shoulder blades. After 2 months, well, you'll really start to feel it. You'll start to know that you've got a problem. In 3 months, you are going to be in agony, in absolute agony. The pain will be in your shoulders from just that 1 inch, that one simple inch of being too high. The agony that'll cause, you know what, you'll be lucky to work for 15-minute stretches at a time and then have 15 minutes off. So again, there goes your productivity as well. But it is all because of using those muscles across the top of the shoulders to raise the arms, locking them in that position and using them as opposed to not using them at all. That is the difference. I have a nice story I'd like to share with you about shoulder pain. I was doing a seminar for a chemical company in Canada, and at the seminar, the CFO was there. And near the end of my seminar, he put up his hand, he had a question. Most people leave their questions until the one-on-one sessions that take place afterwards, because of course everything's then confidential and private, so they're not sharing. But he didn't wait. Right in that seminar, he put his hand up and said, Mr. Price, Mr. Price. And he says, I wanted you to understand this. He's saying, you're saying that the improper keying height can cause discomfort. And I said, yes, absolutely. And he says, well, can it cause pain? And I told him, I said, worse pain than you can imagine. And then he shared with everybody in the seminar. He said, you know, I love to golf. I live for golf. It was March, so golf season hadn't begun yet. And he plaintively looked at me and said, and I can't lift my arms over my head. First thing I asked him, I said, did you start using a computer more frequently 3 to 6 months ago? He said, yes, as a matter of fact, I did. So I immediately said, it's your workstation. And don't worry. His first question was, well, have you seen my office? And I said, no. Would you like me to describe it to you? I knew he had the conventional executive office that doesn't accommodate the physical or functional needs of any executive. So I knew exactly what he had, and that certainly wasn't accommodating his use of the keyboard. So obviously he was the first one-on-one session, and it was an easy fix. And within a few months, a few weeks of recovery, within a few months when the golf season started, anyone asked him, he would say, my golf game is just fine. I mean, his was far from the only golf game that we helped effectively, improve on for people. But there was often a lot of other leisure activities that were being compromised by the pain that they were experiencing in the office. So let's talk about sit stands. There is nothing comfortable about standing. There's no benefit that you can have from standing other than pain transfer. If you are sitting uncomfortably, then you can have a bit of relief if you stand for a while, which itself will just create new discomforts, but in the process will maybe relieve the ones you have on your chair. The best solution remains, if the idea of standing is to relieve the discomfort of sitting, don't have discomfort while you're sitting. Take the time to make sure you adjust your chair so you can work comfortably, sit comfortably, adjust it right, and you will never have a need to stand. At least with sitting in a proper chair, you can support a good upright posture. You can prevent yourself from slouching, which is another thing if you don't have a good chair happens. People slouch and that causes poor postures and discomfort. But if you have a good chair, you're supported. Standing, you have no support. People can slouch just as easily standing as they can in a chair with no back support or not a properly adjusted back support. So it creates all kinds of problems. People will lean on their table, the stand-up table. They'll do all kinds of things that is much better if they simply sat in a chair that was properly adjusted. So, sit, stand, standing, you know what? It came out in the mid-90s. It had a popular spurt of interest. And it died off because, again, it's nothing comfortable about it. And of course now, and I have no doubt that it'll die off as well. However, I have to tell you something. Sit-stand tables do in fact provide a great benefit. Not all of them, but most of them offer a benefit that is very, very, very important in shared offices and so on. And you're going to need one of these. You're going to need a tape measure to really, really gain a benefit from them. And we won't really get into how to make it benefit you, if you have one, how it can be a benefit, until we get to the last section of this video. Okay, so now it's time to start pulling everything together to let you know what you need to think about every time you sit down to work at a computer. Let's deal with the easy one first. You're going to be working on a laptop? Get out of bed. Get off the sofa. Find a table. Find somewhere that you can work sitting properly in a good posture. Now, look at different things. If you are working at a fixed height surface, that's number one condition. Anyone who has to go up and work at a fixed height surface, the first thing you adjust is your arms to the keyboard. So in other words, you want to make sure you're not doing this. Raise your chair, do whatever you have to do, lower, do whatever you need to do in order to bring yourself into a neutral posture in terms of the arms to the keyboard. And straight hand and line into the wrist position, any kind of position. So deal with the arms first. What does that mean? Well, if you have a height adjustable chair, it means you've probably had to raise the chair to get to that position on that fixed height surface. What likely can happen? Well, very often you'll see people that the chair is now too high. And it usually results in the front of the thigh striking the chair at an angle. So it puts pressure on the underside of your thigh. And by the way, you have a vein and an artery that cross each other at that point, called the patella vein and the patella artery. They cross just behind the knee, and you don't have the benefit of all this muscle tissue. And it's very easy for it to cut off circulation. In fact, it is chairs that are too high for the occupant or designed badly, ones that have too prominent, maybe too deep in the seat pan, too high in the front. You'll know if you have pressure anywhere on the under the side front of your thigh, you're going to have a problem. You can end up with knee pain, ankle pain, the swelling in your ankles and feet that we've had. People say their feet feel like they're on fire or they go to sleep. We've had people who say when they stand up, they actually have to wait for the circulation to go back to their feet before they start walking. You know, my favorite is a gentleman. I must admit, I was working on his staff and helping them. And I kept going to this executive's office and kept looking at him. And finally, I just said, "Sir, I'm really sorry to bother you, but if you keep sitting like that, you're going to have terrible pain in your knees." You know what? He couldn't get me into his office fast enough. He come on, and he says, "My knees are killing me, but they hurt at night. They hurt at night when I'm watching TV." Which is why he never thought anything about it. He was trying to figure out what was wrong with this lazy boy chair that was contributing to the knee pain. But in fact, it was how he was working all day long. He was an Asian gentleman, shorter than average, with a chair that was way too high, too deep in the seat, and it was pressing in. I mean, it was obvious. You could look at it and see right away what was happening to him. And of course, once we fix those things, alleviated. We actually, in his case, he stayed with his desk, stayed with his chair, raised his chair, and all he had to do was lift his feet up. We raised his feet. You know what? It's so easy to do. You can use reams of paper bundles. I love it when we used to be in big cities, and you used to have their phone books. They used to be really handy for raising people's feet up. But there's just so many different ways. Put the boxes, put whatever you need to do, that if you're having to adjust and work at a fixed height surface and you're conscious of this position, as that gentleman had been, compromising the knee height, then raise your feet up, okay? So if you're working at a fixed height surface, that's what you want to do. Adjust for your arms, so you're not doing this, that you're working with your hands straight out in front, no strain on the shoulders whatsoever. And then if your feet are too low and you're hitting the front of the chair at an angle, raise up your feet. Now, what if you have an adjustable surface? Now, the interesting thing is, it's amazing how many people out there have dedicated surfaces, dedicated workstations that always were height adjustable. Herman Miller, Hayward, Technion. It goes on and on and on with all the kinds of workstations that always have been. Now, mind you, they've been incrementally adjustable, which is why they're suitable only for dedicated workstations. But nevertheless, I'm just astonished at how many offices we go in. Nobody ever tried to do anything. Nobody ever thought about what that adjustable surface could do for them. If you have an adjustable work surface and you're at a dedicated station, lucky you. And what you want to do then is totally different. You don't adjust for your shoulders first, you adjust for your seat height first. So you adjust the chair so you have an even distribution of weight, of pressure across the underside of your thighs, not concentrated here, not concentrated on your butt. Again, not under your knees, but an even distribution of weight. Then what do? You have that surface adjusted. If there's people that got to do it for you, fine. And you adjust it, and the interesting thing is you want that home row of keys to be at elbow height. So that's the rule of thumb. Be careful, because we see people go, oh yeah, look, it's at elbow height. It's right there. It's at my elbow. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sitting up straight, putting your arms to your side, and you want that home row of keys. Or if you don't even use a computer, if all you do is work on the desk surface, then you want that desk surface to be at elbow height, because then the arms will go out in front of you at this angle. You won't be doing this. You won't be doing this. You won't be leaning forward. You'll be sitting upright in a comfortable position. Of course, don't forget that everything had started with the chair, and I should have mentioned that first. The fact is, you need to adjust the chair back so you can work comfortably, not sitting comfortably so you can work comfortably. And that means giving yourself good lower lumbar support that allows you to sit and work in an upright posture. And again, feels like you're being pushed out right up until you put your arms out in front of you and go into a proper keying position. Then all of a sudden it works fantastically. Don't forget about the wrists. Maintain a straight hand in line to the wrist position. Do anything you can to push get your wrist staying straight. Oh my God, shoulder pain. What do we see with people mousing? I should have mentioned that one as well. We see people mousing like this, straight arming. You're gonna have shoulder problems, terrible shoulder problems. You've got to have it so the mouse is a simple position, sideways to the mouse. Think about it. How easy is that to use? Okay, so getting further on, what about shared workstations? Again, in my opinion, if you got a shared workstation that has a fixed height, then you've got to come in and deal with the chair first. Adjust it so you have no pressure here whatsoever. And again, get anything you can to raise up your feet. But what if you have the best solution possible, a sit-stand table? They can be very, very beneficial if they're in a shared workstation function. Again, don't recommend standing at all. There's nothing comfortable about standing, and you won't need it or even feel the need to stand if you have a chair that allows you to sit and work comfortably. But then, what do you want to do? Again, same thing that we said before with the dedicated workstation. Now all of a sudden it's something that you will do every time you come in. Every time you come into the office, if they have a shared station that has one of those sit-stand tables, and what are the ones that are beneficial? They're not all good, but most of them will adjust down to 24 inches. And if you have one, we always had tables, or we loved working with tables that were 24 to 32 inches in height, because it really covered about 95% of the population in terms of where their height was, of what they needed to be able to work without discomfort. So sit-stand tables, if you can benefit from that 24 or 24 and a half to 34 or 35 inch range for tall people, for even bigger people, fantastic. But what do you need to do? Because you know what? You're going to sit down and you're not going to know, is it at the right height or not? It has to, all you're thinking about is you work. You really have to think very, very, very carefully about, is this set up for me or not? And you're going to have to really concentrate on it. Sometimes you may need somebody else to watch you, to actually look at how you're doing, to see, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Or are you sitting like that? Because once you get that proper height, what do you have to do? You need to get one of these. I showed you that before. It's a tape measure. When you're sure, and only when you're sure, of what height you need to work without discomfort, measure that on that sit-stand table and go, okay, 29 and a half, whatever it's going to be. I mean, I'm almost 6 feet tall, so I need a higher height. But for those of you who aren't, you're going to need it's going to be a lower height. You're going to find out where is your height. And every time you come into that office, every time, you need to grab the tape measure, pull it out of your bag, hopefully they have one for you at the station, and take a measurement. Where is it at your right height or not? Don't guess. Don't sit down and think, well, I think it's okay. Learn, know what you need to do, what you need to have, and make sure the desk gets adjusted for that height. So that's really what it comes down to. So if you have height adjustable, adjust for the chair first, and then adjust the work surface where it has to be for you to work without discomfort. If it's not adjustable, again, you adjust for keying first, then, which means raising or lowering the chair to the point where you can actually key without discomfort, and then you're going to find your feet are either too hanging or they're too low, too high, whatever it is, make the adjustment for your feet. Raise them. Usually it'll be, for most people, at fixed heights, because most fixed heights are too high. Okay, so the interesting thing is that I've really have beaten up ergonomics and ergonomists a lot in this seminar, and I admit that. I don't like what has happened. You know, all of my knowledge started in Sweden, and they were the ones who educated me, very simply, basic ergonomics about what people needed to sit and work comfortably, and it was really an eye-opener. I'm going to be sharing a lot of the things I learned in Sweden when I'm doing the follow-up sessions for you that I hope you follow me to hear about, and a lot of the stuff is very, very interesting. But the reality is that, you know, I beat up ergonomists, but there is a purpose there too. They actually can be there's a lot of good ones. There's ones that really do know what they're doing, really do have a sense for what you need to be able to work without discomfort. And you know what? You could end up having to turn to those individuals. And what would be the cases? Well, I have to tell you, one of the things that we did over the years that of course was very different is once we learned from our questionnaire how people were relating to the discomfort they experienced, we of course started saying to everyone, you must not, and I say this to you, you must not accept physical discomfort as being part of working. Don't accept it. Question it. Why are you hurting? And you know what? We certainly had people kept coming back to us if they continued to experience pain. And that was when we realized and we learned, oh my God, very quickly on, that very often the worst discomfort a person could experience would be caused by something they spent the least amount of time doing. And believe me, to find that, my God, we were often like detectives. We had to be, what is it, you know? We fixed all this. We know they're keying properly. We know this is all fixed. Why are they still hurting? And you know what? It was always something. Just speaking from my own personal experiences, I mean, ones that stick in my mind was an individual who it was how she answered a phone 10 times a day, just 10 times a day. But it was where she answered it from, where she was working, how she reached her arm out. A few months later, the pain in her shoulder was absolutely intense. I had another person that was how they lifted a binder off an overhead shelf. It was a big binder. It was a government worker, but it was a big binder and couldn't stand. It was how she lifted it off the desk and bring it down that was the problem. She only did that a few times a day. Over time, it created a serious, serious problem. We ended up designing an easel type device. There was actually two binders. Now I remember now. There were two heavy binders. We actually combined them on an easel type thing because she was always referring to them, and it sat on her desk beside her lower monitor, and it just, I mean, it totally took care of everything. So it alleviated her shoulder discomfort and actually made it a lot easier for her to use it. It was increased her productivity as well. I've had people who, it was how they reached for paper out of a printer. One of my most difficult ones to figure out was it turned out to be a young lady. It was how she was filing in a filing cabinet. I mean, we fixed everything for her workstation, for her position. She was smaller than average, but we fixed everything, and she still had shoulder pain. So what did we find out? About 10 or 12 times a day, she was going into a filing cabinet. How or why she ended up having the top drawer of a 4-drawer cabinet, we don't know, but it turned out to be how she was filing in that cabinet 10, 12 times a day that was totally causing her shoulder pain. I mean, once we dropped it down to the second drawer, she accessed it from a sitting position. I mean, her pain went away. Oh, by the way, I do want to mention the fact that we always say to employees, we always point out to them, they spend a lot of time hurting themselves. They spend a lot of time developing pain. So give us 3 weeks to make you feel better. Because normally when we change from how you're sitting, from where, if you have shoulder pain, if you have wrist pain, if you have any kind of pain that you're experiencing, what will happen is it takes about 3 weeks for it to go away. But God, if it took months, you'd spent months developing that pain, at least allow us that amount of time. So what is the use of, what benefit can ergonomic consultants have? Certainly finding out what is that one thing that you're doing that's causing, if it continues, if you can't find your solution in what we've seen here. Maybe you need help in knowing, are you working like this? Are you working like this? You know, one of the things we'd like to, if offices go back to more and more people working in the office, we'd love to see a transition from, we know that the old way of cubicles and then it wasn't very good, and the new way of wide open space and benches isn't working. It's too much distraction. There's all kinds of issues with that. Literally back in the late 70s, we learned from the Swedes what they were doing and had actually determined was the most productive grouping of people that you could possibly have in an office. And we would work these layouts where we'd have these individuals in specific size groups that would work and be open to each other. Interesting thing about that is, if that ever happens here, one of the things that we would recommend is having people become responsible for each other from an ergonomic point of view. Look at what that person is doing. If you see that they're getting into a poor posture, if you see them slouching, if you know what they're doing something wrong, their co-worker, you can see them, they're going to end up hurting if you don't say to them, by the way, I can't help noticing that you're slouching. I'll share another one with you that was quite interesting. So one of the things that we see every so often, I'm going to explain it in a different way. I had done a large, it wasn't that long ago, and I did a large seminar for a large company. And everyone wanted all but one person wanted the one-on-one session afterwards. And this one woman who had said, a young woman who wanted to have the session, every time I went by her, she was busy. She was in her office, and she had glass walls, and I could see that she was busy. And every time I peeked in, I said, do you still want this session? Yes, I'm just really, really busy right now. And finally I said, one time I peeked in and I said, by the way, if you keep sitting the way you're sitting, you're going to have terrible left knee pain. And my God, she couldn't get me into her office soon enough, fast enough. Come on in, please. What is it? What are you talking about? And you know what? She did something that, again, you don't usually see this with men, but with women, you will sometimes see, and when does this happen? It happens when the desk is too high for them. What do? They'll do this. They'll cross their leg. And I don't know if you can see immediately what happens. When a person crosses their leg, it actually pulls their spine upright. And that's why you'll see a lot of women, and they'll end up working like this with their leg crossed underneath and pulling their posture up. She didn't have any back support, but that alone did pull her posture up. So, how did I know she had left knee pain? You just saw it. Crossed her legs. Leg over this, cutting off the circulation. It turned out this woman was really into running, had been into running, and was literally distraught about the fact that she could no longer run. She couldn't do it. Too much left knee pain. I said, look, don't cross your legs. You need to lower your surface. Your chair actually is at the right height. You need to get your surface down, or bring your chair up and get yourself something to put your feet on underneath. Don't cross your legs, and your pain will go away. And it did. It did. 3 weeks later, she was out jogging again, and very, very happy. Like I said, she'd been very, very distraught before that. Now, I should tell you that one of the things I find I do when I'm in a hotel room, if I go into a hotel room and I have to get on my laptop, first thing I do is look, where am I going to work? Where and how can I work without discomfort? Often I'll see they'll have a table against the wall, there'll be the mirror over top, the lamp on it, clock, whatever, and a drawer, a thin drawer in the thing. If the desk is too high for me to use on top, I'll open the drawer, put my laptop inside, put a wrist rest usually out of a towel from the bathroom across here. And then I'll look at, well, what has that done to my height? Now, if it's up high and there's no way that chair, which is usually the case, is going to be high enough for me to work comfortably without strain, I start looking around. What am I going to sit on? First thing you look for is the firm pillows that can come off of some of these chairs that they have. Will have pillows. Pull them off, put them on the little desk, the chair that's in front of the table. Use other pillows, but you keep piling them up until you know until you have that position where you can work without this. You may not get the good lumbar position, but believe me, this really doesn't take long to cause you all kinds of agony. Take the time every time you set up. If you find that you go to coffee shops a lot, find a coffee shop that has the best relationship, because the ones that have high tables in relationship to the low benches that you sit on, don't even bother. Because if you start working on those, you're going to end up experiencing discomfort. And it won't take long at all before it becomes a problem. And remember, we're talking about something that's cumulative, and it doesn't take much time. You can sit incorrectly for as little as 1 hour a day, and it'll eventually take its toll, and you eventually will have serious discomfort. So, just to close off, please think about every time you sit down to use your computer, what do you have to think about? What do you have to, in terms of how can you work without discomfort? It's really up to you. It's your choice. And it really comes down to you. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I end up helping you feel a lot better. By the way, we may be figuring out a way that we can. Please get in touch with me if you have questions. You've seen my email address. If you have questions, let us know. If we can figure out a way to help you online to solve your problems, we may have to charge a fee. We hope you can just solve your problems with what we've shown you here. But if you want our help, and again, you may need other ergonomic help as well, go for it if you need that. If we can figure out a way to help you, we will, and just let us know what your questions are, and we'll be happy to see what we can do. Thanks again for your time.